Today, we share with you a short story titled The Story of a Beginning and an End. It began with joy, but turned into deep sorrow and terror. Now, we leave you with the story and its details, wishing you an enjoyable read. In one of the grand hotels overlooking the most beautiful natural scenery filled with vibrant colors and joy, stood a girl with the beauty of a fairy. She wore a pink dress, her hazel eyes gleamed, and her silky hair framed her graceful figure. Her delicate smile radiated warmth as she stood among her family, eagerly waiting for her sister, the bride, to emerge from her room. After a few minutes, an angel in human form appeared, dressed in a white gown that symbolized purity. In her hands, she held a bouquet of red roses. As she stepped out, her family and the groom's family gathered around, with her father leading the way, tears of happiness filling his eyes. He embraced her tightly, kissed her forehead, and walked her towards her other half, entrusting her to him with a heartfelt plea to cherish his beloved daughter, his firstborn, and the joy of his life. As soon as the groom took her hand and the wedding procession began, a sudden explosion erupted like a raging storm, consuming everything in its path. Moments later, silence engulfed the scene. A hand emerged from beneath a massive stone, struggling to push it aside. Slowly, the person underneath was revealed. It was the bride's sister. She was in a terrible state, covered in wounds, her eyes filled with terror as she scanned the devastation around her. With great difficulty, she stood up, her body aching, and took slow, shaky steps through the ruins and the wounded. The deafening sound of the explosion still echoed in her ears, and the horrifying image of destruction was etched in her mind. She started running, her only thought being her family. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she desperately searched for them. She refused to believe that they had left her to face this cruel world alone. She reached the collapsed remains of the hotel and hesitated for a moment before kneeling down, her hands trembling with fear as she began to move the rubble. Suddenly, she froze, as if stung by a venomous creature. Her sister's head lay crushed beneath the wreckage, her once pristine white dress now stained with blood. The sight was too much to bear. Overwhelmed by grief and shock, she lost consciousness, wishing never to wake up again. But fate had other plans. A few hours later, she awoke to a scene that sent chills down her spine. The hospital was overflowing with wounded people. Blood covered the floors, and doctors moved frantically like a beehive, trying to save lives. She shut her eyes tightly, hoping to escape the horrifying reality, but her eyes forced her to witness the heartbreaking chaos. She tried to stand and return to the disaster site to continue searching for her family, but her mind was clouded with sorrow. The memory of her sister, lying lifeless beneath the ruins, tormented her. Though the hospital had managed to stop her external bleeding, it could not mend the wounds within her shattered heart. Determined to find her loved ones, she wandered through the crowded hallways of the hospital. Then she stopped abruptly, her eyes fixed in disbelief on the scene before her. No, no, this can't be real, she screamed, shaking the entire hospital. She rushed forward to her father, who was drenched in blood, his body bearing no sign of survival. Doctors surrounded him, desperately trying to revive him with electric shocks, one attempt after another, but in vain. At that moment, his soul ascended, soaring far from this cruel world to a better place. The girl could no longer endure the relentless blows of fate. In just one day, she had lost both her father and her beloved sister in the blink of an eye. And she had no idea whether her mother was still alive or not. Her legs could no longer support her, and she collapsed to the ground, burying her face in her hands. The entire day replayed before her eyes like a movie reel. She tried to scream again, but no sound came out. The shock had stolen her voice, leaving her trapped in a world of silence, with nothing but her grief echoing in her mind.